Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So welcome to the Elsevier Editor Workshop. I'm Clarice Africa, the Regional Marketing Manager for Elsevier Southeast Asia, your host for this session. So we're very excited to have you all here today. We should be starting in a few moments, but for now, we're very thrilled to have participants joining us from various parts of the region, such as Indonesia and Malaysia. So before we start, so the Editor Workshop is composed of two parts. So the first part is on how serial titles are selected for indexing in Scopus, which includes Scopus content selection criteria and procedure, and evaluation process by a CSAB subject chair. The second part is how to make the journey of journal management rewarding. So before we begin, I'd like to introduce our esteemed speaker for today, Ms. Tracy Chen, the Lead Product Manager for Content and Policy and Global Research Data Platform Department in Elsevier. Ms. Tracy is mainly responsible for content policy, coverage, and development and management for Scopus. She works with the Independent Content Selection and Advisory Board and local boards, as well as various stakeholders in the research community, such as publishers, institutions, and researchers. Tracy has over 15 years of experience in international journal publishing and research data community. She joined Elsevier in 2010 and Scopus Content Management Team in 2018. Prior to product management role, she was a publisher for 11 top-tier Elsevier proprietary international journals in ocean and geotechnical engineering. Tracy graduated from Jilin University and has a master's degree in polymer chemistry and physics. We have set aside some time for questions and answers at the end of the presentation, so please feel free to submit your questions throughout the Q&A feature in your webinar interface throughout the session, and we will do our best to address as many of them as possible. So without further ado, Tracy, over to you.
Thank you, Clarence. Good afternoon, everyone. It's really an honor to be here to share with you some of the selection criteria for Scopus journal evaluation, as well as some insights and notes from our content selection and advisory board members. So I do see that attendees are still, coming. But I would like to start right away, because there are a lot of content for today. And I do actually thanks to all those who submitted your questions for this webinar, and so that I can get a clearer idea, what should be shared for within today. I do see that most of the expectations are indeed on the Scopus content or serial title selections criteria and procedure, so that I hope my part would give you really a clear roadmap of descriptions on those two important topics, as well as, from a CSAB subject chair perspective, how they evaluate journals, what detailed aspects they look at as per individual criteria. But in the meanwhile, I also see some expectations or questions from your audience, such as how to submit a journal, how to write a technical paper, or even how to be a reliable editor. And I have to say that I think some of the part here, like the criteria, what we see as a globally impactful journal, might be relevant for your question, like how to be a reliable editor or how to make your journal impactful. But for those really expecting how to submit a journal, those parts are not included in today's session for my part. I would encourage you to look for the Researcher Academy from Elsevier. That will provide you a handful of resources for that. Okay, so let's start with really some background knowledge about Scopus. Some of, I guess most of you might already know Scopus, which is a source-neutral abstract and citation database, which is also curated by the independent subject matter experts. But still, I think it is necessary to clarify that Elsevier is sort of a famous publisher globally. But for Scopus, Elsevier's content is only one of the publishers that we cover. So basically, Scopus covers content from over 7,000 publishers and based on about 28,000 active serial titles. I'm talking about active because there are another, I think, about more than 20,000 inactive titles, also with some or part of their content indexed in Scopus. Besides serial titles or journals as the majority part, we also cover books or the other or conference proceedings as the research content. So, which makes the content for Scopus today composed of about 92 million items, and also using the very good algorithms formulating about 70,000 affiliation profiles and about 17 million author profiles. But actually, Scopus is more than that. The team I worked on mainly works on the serial title selections or evaluations. But from Elsevier research tech intelligence perspectives, publication data is only one part. So let me show this pointer. Yeah. So this is publication data from the foundation of all the research intelligence knowledge or content. We also have funding data, Plum X matrix data, which includes about, say, the autumn matrix or social media impact. Also, we have the preprint server data, which is really an important element for the open science nowadays, as well as Medline data or unpaywall data, which is mainly dedicated to open access data for the database. So all this is combined with the enabling technologies like the big data technology, machine learning, as well as the others, which form those trusted, curated content. And in further details about the content itself, because I'm the department I worked on really looks holistically on everything about this. You can see that Scopus basically covers all subject areas, including the very top level, like physical sciences, health sciences, social sciences, arts and humanity, as well as life sciences. And if you look at the number of serial titles here, actually social science and humanities have the largest number of serial titles here. And overall, we not only have journal content, which is already a quite big group, but also have conferences, which mainly on the engineering computer science, because conference content is really an important element there in evaluating or showing the research impact for the researchers, as well as we also have books, which also plays a key role in the social science and arts and humanity, which is why most of the book content we covered is on the social science and arts and humanity. So overall, up to July, Scopus has about 92.4 million records from 28.2 or actually 15,000 serial titles from 7,000 publishers across 105 countries and regions. The content there is updated daily, so approximately about 12,000 new articles per day indexed. And also, as open science is, people look at this topic more and more these days, and it is really becoming more important. About 22 million open access documents are labeled in Scopus, which is easy for you to find and to use as the free content. And also the preprint here, I think the current use for preprint is mainly to incorporate that into the author profiles, which shows really the early indicators for a researcher. But Elsevier is also exploring more use case for that, because as said, open science and open access is really a key trend today for the scientific publishing. So we are seeing the how to use such content and data better for our solutions. I guess most of you might know that the serial titles are evaluated by this group of independent this independent group of experts, sorry. And they are called the Content Selection and Advisory Board. It is really an independent board. It's they have the final decision for all the titles accepted for inclusion in Scopus. And they are chosen for their expertise in specific subject area as well as their editor experience. So they know journals really, and they use the same set of criteria to select, to evaluate and select the journals that are covered for Scopus. On the other hand, I also see that there is one question about the reevaluation for the serial titles for Scopus, which I do not have a very detailed content or slides for today due to time limit. But overall, this group of experts is also responsible for the reevaluation part for the titles. So how many stages a journal will go through before it can get acceptance? I have tried to list the stage here. So normally we see this as 3 stages. The first one, the journal really needs to self-check about the criteria or even about whether your journal is already indexed in Scopus, because there are traditionally or legacy titles already indexed, but some of their journals didn't realize that. Or, you know, a submission can come from a librarian and they do not know that level of details for the journal. But again, you really have to check that, and then you can submit your proposal via our online platform. And then our Amsterdam team will check on the what we call minimum criteria for the journal. So minimum criteria, I will elaborate that later. And for titles passing those minimum criteria, they will be sent to expert, CSAB, for a full review and a final decision. And number-wise, normally we receive about 3,500 suggestions per year, and that's since basically 2019. And about 40% of them can meet the minimum criteria, and you can realize that how strict it is for the minimum criteria. And then for those passing through the minimum criteria and sent for expert review, about a bit less than 50% will finally get accepted. So every year for all the new submissions, about 550 journals got accepted. But every year, actually, we accept more than that. I think about 1,200 to 300 titles per year, which means actually there are many titles that were previously either rejected after expert review or were rejected because of minimum criteria. They do not meet that. They come back to us. So that also occupies a large number here. And some of them do get accepted even after previous rejections. Okay, and here is the transparent selection criteria, especially for the minimum criteria. And please note that all titles should meet all minimum criteria in order to be considered for Scopus review, meaning that if you do not meet any of these criteria, you will become ineligible for review. So we will not send it to CSAB for the expert review. And here for the minimum criteria, it includes peer review. So it must be a peer-reviewed journal. And it even needs a publicly available description of the peer review process for your journal. And then it needs to have an English title, abstract, author affiliation. Those metadata needs to be in English. But then there is a new change, I think already about 2 years ago, is we used to require the references needs to be translated or transliterated into Roman script or English. But nowadays it's no longer a mandatory requirement. But still, to be honest, these days the reference linking or the citation impact is mainly based on the Roman script. So which is why we still encourage the journals, you know, if you have such capacity or resources to do it, we still think this is a good way to improve the global readership for your journal, the internationalization for the journal. And then you really have to publish regularly because normally if a journal cannot publish regularly, it indicates something like, you know, the journal operation may have already had some issues or problems. In the meanwhile, certainly a journal, especially for a new journal, needs to be registered in an ISSN International Center. I do know normally a journal will first register an ISSN through a national center, but please make sure that those data are well aligned within the ISSN International Center, because that is the portal that we validate, you know, validate your data like your ISSN. If we cannot see that, it means that it is not a valid ISSN, and we cannot see this as meeting our minimum criteria. And last but not least, a journal really needs to have a publicly available publishing ethics and publication malpractice statement. And the operational part for the publishing ethics and malpractice, or the transparencies of your journal operation models is listed here. So we are in line with the 16 points of principles of transparency and best practices of scholarly publishing, which was published or established by COPE, that's publishing Committee of Publishing Ethics, as well as the OAJ, OASPA, and WAMI. So overall, we consider the journals should try to abide by those principles and making sure that you are operating in a very transparent and honest way. And I list here is what really our CSAB commented. It's more about transparency and honesty. So the journal needs to disclose really most of the information here to your readers and authors to make indicating that your journal is operating in a very transparent and global best practice way. Okay, so these are mainly the stage 1 and 2 about self-checking, about title submission, and about the minimum criteria checking. And one thing to say that if you receive a note from our content team saying that your title is ineligible for review, meaning that you might not slip or miss 1 or 2 minimum criteria here, it doesn't mean that you cannot come back to us. Certainly, we encourage you to come back, because at the time you modify any of those aspects, making sure that the journal already meets those minimum criteria, then your title will become eligible, meaning that there's no embargo time included in such checking. Okay, and then afterwards, after the journals meet those minimum criteria, they will be sent to CSAB to evaluate based on these 14 quantitative and qualitative selection criteria, which we categorize them into 5 categories. So I have to read a bit here because I think it will make it a bit clear, but I would not elaborate it into further details on this slide, because the second part, the CSAB comment or their evaluation procedure, will offer more of the details here. So overall, those selection criteria include the journal policy, quality of content, journal standing, regularity, and online availability. I think regularity and online availability can be well understood by you, right? But overall, what I learned from CSAB is that the first 3 parts are most often the decisive factors for journals to be included. So overall, they are really looking for representative, high quality work, either from local market or from a globally high standard point. So journal policy indicates that your journal really needs a convincing editorial concept or editorial policy, and you have to use, normally it's a widely recognized peer review type. And then for a globally impactful journal, as well as a journal normally focusing on the most frontiers of a subject, you do have to have certain diversity in the geographic distribution of your editors as well as your editorial board members. And then you also need certain diversity for geographic diversity for the authors. And about the quality of content is the academic contribution to the field, the clarity of abstracts, quality and conformity with stated aim and scope, as well as the readability of the articles. Here, there can be one point about non-English articles, which I will also cover for the second part. And thirdly, which is also very important, is about the journal standing or the impact indicated by the citations of the journal. So which is evaluated based on the citiness of journal articles in Scopus, as well as the editor's standing or editor profiles for the journal. So again, number-wise, if you look at the statistics of all the journals submitted for Scopus coverage, so during the past, I think 5 years, overall about 15,000 submissions were received from our end. And nowadays, about more than 50% already meet the minimum criteria, which actually increased a bit over years. And then for those sent and reviewed by the CSAB, about less than 50% were finally accepted by CSAB. And if you look at the trend from for the past years, the blue bar indicates the suggested titles. You can see there is a jump from 2018 to 2019. Actually, that is the year that we proactively looked at many journals covered by emerging science citation index. Some of you may know. But so basically we have them all checked and evaluated. Some, for those passing the minimum criteria evaluated by CSAB, about 1,000 journals were rejected finally, so which is not ineligible for Scopus coverage. But overall, you see that we have about 3,500 submissions per year, and then more than 1,000 journals accepted, which is the orange bar every year. And the acceptance rate, I think this is the yellow line here, is a bit above 40%, but less than 50%. Last year, we have a bit of a higher acceptance rate, which is actually because we also evaluated many journals in, I think, from Medline. Some of you may know that Medline is also a well-renowned database, that is widely recognized in the medicine subject. But not all of them are actually the majority of the Medline journals are already covered, but some of them are only covered through the Medline database, which we call it's not a full indexing. And, for those you know Medline, you know that those journals, they will not have references. So, but for those journals, we have them all evaluated by CSAB. It turns out, I think the majority got accepted finally, and which resulted in a bit of a higher acceptance rate for the journals here. Okay, and I've also did a bit of a work digging from all the rejected titles from China and South Korea back in 2021, and I think it can give you a bit of a sense why journals got finally rejected. And you can see that the majority of the reasons is because mainly the journal don't have a convincing policy or don't have a good journal standing. but the others that can also play a role here, like the online availability. I guess some of the journals happen to China journals because it's not always they have a very stable website here. And also, there are a proportion of journals rejected because their content, like, they do not contribute, have good contribution to the academic field. And also here, I've shown several rejection letter examples here to give you a sense, how rejection letter may look like. So this is a journal for chemical engineering energy subject. It was a new journal. It was only established or launched in 2021, and it submitted but got rejected with an embargo of 1 year. Actually, it's quite, it's not very long time. The embargo period can be from 6 months to 5 years. But overall, the CSAB sees this journal has, it has a clear aim and scope, which is good. And the publications are consistent with the journal's aim and scope, with the journal's content, but the journal has a very high, it seems a high acceptance rate and a low number of citations, which indicate that the quality of the content and also the impact of content is not yet there. So we offered, the CSAB offered some advice to that. So in a nutshell, it is still expected the high impact articles are required for the journal. And then this is another journal from in language and linguistics subjects. It's got a rejection, but with a quite long embargo period, that is 3 years. But you can see that the CSAB do offer some positive comments, like what is done good for the journal, like the abstract are keeping with the English language requirement, the content is consistent with the aim and scope. You can see that this is really, frequently mentioned as one of the key criteria from CSAB. But despite it's already a journal with certain history, the articles there attracted very few citations, which means that it has limited impact. And then there are a few good informative articles, so these are good things, but also many articles that make little contribution to the fields. As said, our CSAB really has that subject expertise, and they can judge, what kind of, how those articles really contribute to the field. And that is really their strength. And here also, I think this is also a good point here, and mentioning that many good international journals already cover this subject area, meaning that normally for Scopus, I learned from some of the subject chairs saying that they really care about the unique content, which we don't cover for the moment. And those type of titles will get a quicker turnaround or decision time. But if it is a long established journal, but with very limited citations or impact, and the other journals already cover the subject, it's not easy for such journals to get enrolled. And also, the journal title implies that it is international, but this is not supported by the aim and scope. This is sort of a bit of a mismatch for your journal title and your aim and scope. Okay, and procedural-wise, actually, there is a stage 4 for those accepted journals. So as said, the stage 1, 2 are more about self-checking, about minimum criteria checking, and stage 3 is about expert reviews. But then for the journals that got finally accepted, so here I've listed, there is a stage 4, and I do know some of the journals may already got accepted, and you may wondering what would be that. So that is includes permissions, licensing, data processing, data to be fed onto the Scopus platform or even CSAB platform to be used for the users. And finally, to the Scopus source profile. And here is some time needed listed here. It is not short, I have to admit, but it's also needed because I think this is the way how we process data and making sure that as much as sufficient metadata can be included into the whole database, and making sure that this data can be, this high quality data can be well used by the users. And this process is managed by the Elsevier Publishing Relationship team. And if you have any questions, please contact the BD at cm@elsevier.com. So they are really the department you go to help you with any questions here. And again, here is another timeline indicated, like once your title is accepted, there are about 4 weeks. You can finalize the permission and licensing part, and then another 6 weeks for the content to be processed. So overall, I think the quickest can be 3 months long, or even I think as short as about 2 months. But the longest can be even longer than that, about 6 months or even longer in case of problems. Another initiatives we did for past 2 years was we added the new accepted titles got into the Scopus source list here. So nowadays, the acceptance title list as well as the discontinued title list are updated monthly. So we do hope via this, we can, send the proof of this journal got accepted and indexed in Scopus as early as possible to the researchers or to the users. Okay. And then let's go to the second part. I see time is passing by. So I will try to, be objective, or try to really share only the personal reflections from our CSAB subject chair, rather than, explaining it further from my personal perspective. So these are the reflections from a subject chair for environmental sciences, who is Professor Peter Brimblecom. It mainly relates to the environmental journal character, but environmental is a very broad topic. And so most of the reflections here can really relate to all other topics. There is a disclaimer I have to read out. So these reflections are based on personal experiences of the subject chair, meaning that the other subject chairs might not use the exact same perspective or rationales when evaluating the journal. But overall, they really evaluate all the journals based on the same 5 key areas. So they use the same platform for those evaluations, and the platform offers them all the criteria, all the the content involved in each key area to be here. That is journal policy, content quality, journal standing regularity, and online availability. But you can also see that normally a subject chair will look at the online availability first, because it's usually, easy, and it's more of a formatting or technical perspective. But still, they will, you can see they will normally try and download some of the published manuscript. It's not always those chosen by the editors, because for those of you who have already submitted a proposal or for evaluation, that you have to upload about 10 manuscripts or 10 publications to the platform. So subject chairs may look at them, but they may not. So they will go to your website and download some of the recent published manuscript and make their own judgment. And the appearance and ease of use of the website is not a critical, so it's not a decisive factor, but still, a good quality website do demonstrate that the journal is quite professional and is of high publication standards. And then secondly, about the journal policy, there are, I think, about 3 points or 3 aspects about this. And the first of all is the aim and scope of the journal. Some journals may just have a vague statement. It's just saying, the journal rapidly publish high quality articles, but it doesn't really say to the readers or the authors why you should read our journal, why you should choose to publish within our journal. And the areas is sometimes very broad. It has no niche to occupy, so we publish everything, which, while some journals make it good, it can make very clear and appropriate. Like I used to be a publisher, and I do know a journal that Elsevier publishes. Previously, we have a big paragraph, describing what can be included, but still we consider that as too broad and it cannot differentiate our journal from others. So we rephrase it and really make certain level of bullet points, like, these are the topics we really want to cover. And even we will cover, these are topics we do not want to cover, and please stop submitting those type of articles to us. Last but not least, even it is related to the aim and scope, ethics really become increasingly important, which some of the topics will be covered in the other aspects here. And then another important point for journal policy is about the structure of the board, origins of the authors, as well as the referee or reviewing processes. So first of all, the journal may claim to be international, while the editors and authors are only from one country, which is not acceptable. So you can understand here, your journal can be country focused, which is fine, but it has to be in line with all your editorial policies, your journal name, your editors, your board members, or your authors even. And the editor status expertise is important here. The regional journals do best if they attempt to link with the wider international audience. So which means that you can be a regional journal, but still your topics can be relevant for an international audience. And from the journal policy perspective or editorial practice perspective, please do relate that to the international audience. And relevance to an international audience is not the same as being international. It's not the same as just give an international in the title of your journal. So do not call a journal. You can see that these descriptions here really tells you have to align your editorial policy with everything here. So you have to make a very clear position how your journal aim to improve or how your journal is positioned there. So unique local content may be relevant to an international audience and can be attractive for Scopus. But well, there can be narrow authorships. It may be appropriate for a region, but it may not. So there are some, how to say, flexibilities here, and I believe the CSAB make their own judgment and making using their expert subject domain expertise, as well as their experience as journal editors, as well as their evaluations for loads of journals for the past years. They can make such judgment on this. Last but not least, the referee processes is also very important. So do make your referee process and criteria very clear on your journal website. It can be a hint. It is not of a high standard. Like you may have difficulties in attracting referees or use of biased referees, and even checks on refereeing or certain editorial policies. And again, I kind of feel here that you must have one really in place, and you have to abide by that. But what CSAB may look for that is what looks suspicious. And for those suspicious ones, I think these are sort of the fatal flaws for your journals and make the decisive factor, for the journal. And what looks suspicious, normally a single review by main editor, it can be accepted for certain subject, but it's not the most commonly used type of peer review. Or a journal just indicate very fast reviews, 2 weeks or even less. and even a guarantee of a publication, which is normally not a good practice for a journal operation. Or there can be a new journal with very rapidly increasing volumes that also indicates some of a loose peer review for the journal. And also there can be cases that an author who serve as his own referee, which is not easy to detect to my understanding, but still, sometimes the CSAB may have the power and network to realize that, and that is indeed a suspicious thing. And I think another thing we've already discussed during the last CSAB meeting is about the paper mill involvement here, which we can talk about an hour. But overall, for paper mill activities, I think we, as well as you from the journals, are standing in the same line. We have to figure out effective ways to, to fight against that, because these are really not unethical practices for research publishing. And overall, journals are really standing at the very front to fight against that. Thirdly, it's about the content quality. And when we talk about content quality, I think most of you may consider about the academic contributions. That's for sure an important part. But the quality of the layout also counts. Like the figures, whether it is revealing or and the figure, the quality of the figures can be the indicators of low or high standards of the journal. And also the abstract also useful, especially for non-English journals. Most of the CSAB understands English only, so do make sure that your abstract is well written without any, for example, grammatical errors. And also the CSAB would also look at all the articles readable and not plagiarized. They will especially look at the hypotheses and conclusions, which is an interesting tips here. And frequent problems of low quality or not innovative articles, like you may have published a lot of descriptive or even repetitive works, which is not a very good practice for a journal wishing to make impactful work, or they aiming to advance the frontiers of a certain subject. Or also there can be essays or reviews lacking intellectual synthesis. It's just a layout of, a lot of the publications or references. Again, it is not of high quality, and it can be a fatal flaw or a decisive factor for the rejection of your journal. For non-English languages, about 10% of the journals evaluated by CSAB are not in English. So it can be Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, or even Farsi, Chinese, Japanese, others. So CSAB do look for help here. But overall, they can already evaluate a bit about based on the metadata of those journals. But overall, I think CSAB are looking for a journal hoping to widen its readership, or at least, have a good editorial practice to either to remember to relevant or to correlate your content with the wider international audience. And widening about readership is, there are some suggestions here, like the journal titles, it should be in English. It actually is more of a problem for Roman abstract languages. And to my understanding, you have to align your citation format or your journal title, so making sure that you have a good branding of your journal. Certainly offer keywords and abstract in English and ensure proper English spelling and grammar is used, and also translate both figures and table captions as well as references. Again, these are really the suggestions and tips, and especially the English figure, table captions, references list are not the mandatory requirement for journals to be indexed, but still, while we all understand that English nowadays is the most commonly used language for scientific communication, right? And if you want to expand the readership, I think some of the work here or the suggestions here can be considered. Then the content quality is the quality and conformity with the stated aim and scope. Are the articles recognizable, associated with the journal title and scope? And I've also included in one of the rejection letters, you can see that the journals can be rejected because of this reason. Or are they reasonably distributed across the scope, which is also an interesting point. Like certain journals, they have very big scope, and they list 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 points, but, possibly they only publish in the first 5 points, but not the others. And this can be a problem for some journals, and which may suggest they may have problems in attracting articles, or at least their initial position, they cannot, meet some of their initial positions here. Okay, and then the third category are the journal standing, which mainly indicated by the citations as well as the editor's standings. And about citations, what the CSAB can look at are, not only really an abstract number of citations your journal get, but also like what percentage of articles have been cited, how many titles are, how many times are articles cited, how recent are the citations, and who is citing the articles, or what journals are citing the articles, or what countries the citations come from. Does it make sense? And so these are all things that the CSAB may evaluate, and they also realize that the inclusion in Scopus may shift this. So overall, the decision is based on a comprehensive judgment on, based on different categories here. And then the editor standing. So normally they will look at all the editors well-known and widely published in that specific field of your journal. But it's not always needed. And well, they do know that some of the journals are well managed by the professional editors and not academics. But in such cases, we really need a good and accessible editorial board. But on the other hand, normally we do not encourage a very big board, because there will be suspicions that the people there or the researchers there can be paid. So which is not a good thing for a journal operation. Then I think this is the last part, is about the regularity. So usually journals manage to meet this, but some may have low publication frequency or quantity that makes their viability worth thinking about. Again, about impact of the journal, you do need certain number of publications and published in a regular and planned way. But there are, differences in really different fields. I've learned from certain arts, humanity, or social science fields that the journal may publish really very small number of articles per year, which is also acceptable. Okay, last but not least is really the ethical issues. Again, it is rising. All of us realize that. We've spent a lot of time these days really working on it. And overall, Scopus has its rigorous content curation workaround on the predatory publishers or journals, and CSAB are the part evaluating or making final decisions whether these journals can continue to index in Scopus. I think this is the last part. I've already exceeded my time, and sorry for that. And overall, I think the slides will finally shared with all of us. And if you start preparing submission for title evaluation for Scopus, this can be a checklist for you. I think that's it. Yeah, I will stop sharing now.
Thank you, Tracy, for that really great presentation. So we've got several questions from our audience today, so I'll just read through some of it. So first question is, I would like to ask about the script that projected by the journals. And do the rejected journals come with comments or without?
If I understand this question, you mean the rejected letters, how rejected letters will look like, right?
And whether they would come with any comments?
Yes, certainly. So these are the real rejection letters, those examples I've shared during the presentation. And they will really list what are positive, what are negative for the journal operations, or even for certain journals, subject chair will offer some suggestions for improvement. But in the meanwhile, let me remind a bit that for those suggestions, it is up to you because you know your journal best. It is up to you to decide whether to follow or how to follow about it. And there is no guarantee that, if all suggestions are met or are well conducted, your journal will get finally indexed. Another independent evaluation will be done for the journals, rejected journals coming back to us.
Okay. The second question is, if our journal is not in English language, but have an abstract and title in English, can we submit it to Scopus?
Yes, certainly. As said, about 10% of the journals submitted to us is not in English. They are local language journals, but I think there are several aspects I've shared, like, you have to have a very clear aim and scope of your journal. And, hopefully you can aim to expand the readership of your journal. And certainly technically you need to have your metadata in English or in Roman script languages so that you can meet at least the minimum criteria for Scopus.
The next question is, what is the criteria or reasons for the title to discontinue or stop indexing?
Yeah, that's a good one. For the discontinued journals, so discontinue and stop indexing, I treat it as two part, and there can be journals. Normally, the CSAB evaluated and discontinued journals, we call it one way. That is the journals we proactively discontinue them, and I think there is a white paper that we written for all the details here. And overall, CSAB is using the same set of criteria on selecting journals to evaluate the journals we nominated for reevaluation. But there can be other type of journals that you see seeming like stop indexing or discontinue, but actually it is because the journal got missed in data feed. And for that part, please, if you know that your journal used to get indexed already in Scopus, but without any notice, while the journal stopped indexing, it really can be that, the operation team cannot source data from your journal already. And please contact the BDSCM, our operation department, for clarity, and we will, guide you through to resume the indexing for your journal.
I think two more questions. So can a journal with content in Bahasa Indonesia be indexed in Scopus? I think you sort of also addressed this question similar to this earlier. Yep.
Yeah, it's about non-English journal, right? Sure. If you check the Scopus list, you can see that we have about journals in 40 languages. Indonesia, I don't think it's a big non-English language index, but still we do have certain journals there. Yeah.
Okay. Any request to reveal the identity of peer reviewers?
That is an interesting one, or a good one. Actually, I remember that we had certain discussions, and we even received certain feedbacks from the journals or the other databases. At the moment, we do not request journals to disclose or review the identity of the peer reviews. For peer review types, the journals have their own preferences or choices of the peer review format styles. Normally the journals can be double blind or single blind, and double blind they do not review any identity of either the authors or the peer reviewers. So we all respect that. For the evaluation submission part, we do not, we do not require any information there. It's mainly important for the journals do it in their own way, and also they will have a clear peer review policy, announced on their website.
I think we can just entertain one more question before we jump to our next session on journal management. So the question is the International Advisory Board taken into consideration as the editorial board in terms of evaluation of diversity of editor?
Yes, certainly. So the editors, the editorial boards are definitely considered as, the editorial policies. As said, there can be professional editors who are possibly not what we regularly considered as, academics for acting as the chief editor. But for such journals, normally they definitely need a solid, good editorial board to support that. And in such case, or even in other case, editor can only be 1, 2, 3 person, right? But then the editorial board is really the name card for your journal, and their editorial standing or their diverse, especially their geographical diversity, are well considered during the evaluation.
Thank you for that, Tracy. Now it's time to jump to our second part of the webinar, which is really on how to make the journey of journal management rewarding. So here to share her insights is my colleague Priyanka Chatterjee. So Priyanka works as a software solution sales manager at Elsevier. She brings with her 12 years of experience liaising and working with research leaders across academic institutions and government organizations. She's passionate about providing innovative and technology-based solutions to the academic world, driving higher research outcome. In her role, she works closely with senior academic leaders, library communities, and scholarly networks, understanding the research needs while aligning appropriate solutions that best meet their desired outcomes. She's based in Singapore and networks across the APAC region, driving the value of Elsevier software solutions and repurposing the concepts around research, administration, publishing, research and data management, etc. So without further ado, Priyanka, over to you. Oh, sorry.
Thank you so much, Clarice. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Tracy, for that wonderful session. I think your session has laid the foundation right for us to begin with my session. I would like to share with all of you that I wouldn't be taking a very long time because I know that, today's session is more about understanding on Scopus indexation. What my session would do, it follows right after my colleague Tracy has explained how journal indexation works, how Scopus works in terms of selecting the right journals and assessment of the journals. Now, whatever we have heard from her, building on that, I would be sharing with you that how in Elsevier we have a solution that enables you and supports you in terms of meeting those requirements or preparing your journal in the best way possible so that you have a higher possibility of getting your journal indexed through that support that is being provided to maintain the improvement and the quality of the journal. So we are going to do very quickly talk about some of these aspects, what we cover, what is included in that service. So I think my first slide is kind of recapturing what Tracy has shared with you all in terms of what is really required when you're talking about improving a quality of journal and getting your journal prepared or in the best possible way for getting indexed in Scopus or any other international ANI databases. Now, it's some of the key concepts are, talking about editorial board, author and author responsibility, the peer review process, and we have covered a lot around peer review process, publication ethics, copyrights and access, archiving, owners and management, how do you maintain your website, regular publishing, as well as how do you name your journals. Now, many of these are already known to you, but when it comes to managing your journal, most of the times, a lot of journal editors are so busy maintaining the software itself, which is hosting and managing the journal, that a lot of their time is invested in just maintaining the website, maintaining the software which is hosting the journal, or just regularizing or synchronizing the processes which are involved in the editorial process, that they do not have time to actually look into the strategic aspect of maintaining individual milestones of your journal. And this is where Elsevier does have a solution that provides a full holistic end-to-end requirement in terms of meeting what the journal needs, what the editor needs, and what the author needs. So when we talk about journal support, we are talking about how do you make your journal professional. Now, we know that, in the Southeast Asia region and even in South Asia region, there are plenty of journals, right? Most of the universities are publishing hundreds of journals. The quantity is there, but the struggle is always how do you maintain the quality? How do you make sure that you are actually investing your time publishing a journal which has a great quality, not only in terms of accepting the manuscripts, but also you have a great and very robust workflow system to manage the whole journal management system. Now, this is where, when I travel across and meet different universities and publishers, from my experience of interacting with them, I realize that there is a certain level of lacunae when it comes to maintaining the professionalism of the journal. Even today, there are many who are still using emails to kind of manage the peer review process, which if you look into how Scopus defines what is a robust workflow system, you will realize that that is not really an accepted method. So when it comes to journal hosting, we see that the journals do not have a very professional look in terms of the branding and the design. We also understand that the software solution which is hosting the journal is always not in the, it's not maintained properly, or it's not in its updated version. It also has a lot of security concerns, and all of that kind of makes the whole experience of publishing a journal very turdy, or it's very labor intensive, and editors get so drawn into managing that operational aspect of the journal, that when it comes to looking into the deep diving into the quality of the journal, or really strategizing how to make a journal visible, how to make the journal and the article receive more citation through increased reach, they do not have time to invest in that. When it comes to editors are looking for support as well. Editors are looking for a system that can help them to manage the editorial process in a very smooth and seamless way. Authors are looking for a workflow system where they can submit their articles, where they can get their review processes done in a very wonderful, rewarding manner. One of the biggest challenge, apart from the software solutions, editors also suffer from getting the access of a reviewer, a quality reviewers. Most of the time, the challenge is, they do not have a good reviewers who are reviewing their articles. A lot of reviewers reject to review their articles, or sometimes the reviewers are not really up to date, or not really giving them the review at the right time. Now, all of these, if you consider, they've been put into 3 different buckets, but if you combine them together, you realize that all of this make the whole process of managing a journal very cumbersome. And on top of that, it's like a chicken and egg situation. If your journal is not indexed, you do not get good quality papers. And to make the journal indexed, you need good quality papers. So in either way, it's what one thing that the editorial community, the research community is looking for is that how to make the experience better. How do you elevate the value of the journal? How do you elevate the value of the articles which are getting submitted into the journal? And that is why in Elsevier, what we do, we provide a solution that can help, not just providing the infrastructure to manage the journal, but more than that in terms of really giving tips and services, in terms of seeing that the journal quality, journal management is done in a very good way. So, this slide, probably will explain to you that it has, Tracy has covered this part. So I will skip this part in terms of what are the minimum requirements which are required for the journal. Now, when we deep dive into some of the technical aspect of the journal, that when you are looking into getting your journal better or improving your journal, you're looking at the editorial scope and the peer review process, diversity of your editors, diversity of authors and reviewers, grading and clarity of the abstracts, quality of and conformity with stated aims, readability of the articles, the figures and graphs and grammar, academic contribution to the field, citation and article reach, and editorial team reputation. So to maintain that, how? So when we talk about all of these, where does Elsevier come into the picture, step in and reaches out the hand to the editorial community and said, hey, we understand you, you have a problem, you have an aim, and we are here to support you. Now, for us, that service that we are providing you by, extending our hand is a premier publishing service that we provide in Elsevier through our Digital Commons platform. Now, Digital Commons, I know many of you who are attending today's session, it is not a foreign name. It's you all are familiar with what Digital Commons does. It is a cloud-hosted solution that helps institutions and publishing community to host, manage, and publish their journals. Digital Commons has been in the market for more than 20 years now, and we have been working with the publishing community to help them support how to regularize their publishing process, how to make their journals look professionally very appealing, and how do you prepare your journal in the best possible way so that the journal has higher chances of getting indexed in the ANI databases. Along with that, you also would like to have a platform which is also providing you with a very easy and seamless way to manage your manuscript management process. Now, Digital Commons has been accepted and is adapted by many institutions in India, in Philippines, in Indonesia, in Thailand, in Singapore. So overall, even in the Asia Pacific region, we have a very good acceptance of Digital Commons platform. Now, within that Digital Commons services, one of the service that has been very popular and which actually joins hand in hand in terms of helping you to prepare your journal so that your journal can check, tick the check mark, the criterias in terms of preparedness for getting your journal indexed in Scopus. Now, that service is known as the Premier Publishing Service. So within the Premier Publishing Service, there are two aspects, So one aspect, the, holistic approach in journal management. So we provide you with the preservations in Clocks and Portico. We work with the library discovery platforms and link resolvers. We provide you with the DOI. What if you already have a DOI, we also support you to maintain your DOI. We are also providing you with the plagiarism detection, access to plagiarism detection a tool. We also provide you with the typesetting services and connection to the additional production services. And the other aspect of the Premier service is the three most vital aspect is that we provide you access to editorial manager as your back end, which means you have access to editorial manager tool to manage your incoming manuscripts and the editorial processes. Along with that, we also have experts who come in and guide you and provide you with strategic advising, which means they look at your journal, they review your journal, they tell you what is right for the journal, what is not right for the journal. They comment on the aims and scopes of the journal. They also provide you with a lot of support in terms of how you can improve the journal. We don't end there. Once you come on board with Digital Commons platform, we provide you with all the support. We also want you to have access to metrics so that you will know that after having this service, am I being able to make good use of it or not? Which means you need to have access to metrics that help you to understand, okay, what has been the reach of your journal? Who all is reading your journal? What has been the citation of your article from the time that you have come on board? Did Digital Commons platform and the Premier Publishing Service bring more increased visibility for your journal or not? And for that, we also provide you with journal impact reports. Now, let's deep dive into some of these concepts. Now, I told you that when you have Premier Publishing services, you have access to our editorial manager tool. We provide access to editorial manager tool. Now, editorial manager, probably many of you are very familiar with what editorial manager is. You've been using it. So we provide you with editorial manager to manage your manuscript. And the two most critical advantage of editorial manager. One, you have integrated plagiarism checking tool, which is embedded within the editorial manager platform. And second, you also have, along with the integrated plagiarism checking tool, we also provide you with a database for reviewers. And this time we are providing you with the Scopus reviewer tool, and which I'll be covering in the next slides. And that gives you access to a huge number of suggested reviewers. And these suggestions come based on the article. So depending on what is the subject of the articles, what are the keywords of the article, the system will suggest names of the reviewers whom you can connect with and then submit the paper for the review process. So with the Premier Publishing Service, you are already, technically, you are having a very robust workflow to manage the complete editorial process. Once that is done, now next part is how do you make sure that your journal has higher visibility? How do you make sure your journal reaches to a wider community? For that, once the journal backend process is done, the hosting and the showcasing of the journal happens on the Digital Commons platform. Now, the one thing which is very unique about Digital Commons is that it comes with the industry-leading search engine optimization and web discoverability tools. Now, these heavy jargons, what does it mean? It means that once you're hosting your journal on our platform, the algorithm is written in such a way and it is continuously being maintained and upgraded so that the journal has a higher visibility. It has higher traffic coming in from Google and Google Scholar. It reaches to a wider audience, and it also becomes part of the Digital Commons network. This network has 2,500 journals which are hosted on Digital Commons platform. All of these journals comes together to be part of the Digital Commons network. So just to give you some idea, Editorial Manager is also being used by Elsevier's prominent journals, Lancet and Cell Press. So they use Editorial Manager to manage their editorial processes. We also have all the journals from PLOS and Taylor and Francis. They also use Editorial Manager as their backend. Now, I told you that within Editorial Manager, we also have a reviewer tool, and we have introduced this Scopus reviewer using Scopus reviewer tool, where you have up to 100 suggested reviewers, which are given in a single search. You will have a dynamic search engine, which will filter based on the age index, expertise, publication history, and more of individual authors. There'll be an advanced conflict of interest detection, and you will also have built, and all of this is built on the Scopus data. So when you use Editorial Manager, you will have access to this tool, which is find reviewers using Scopus, so that the whole process and the whole struggle and challenge that editors of the journals go through in terms of identifying reviewers, sending papers to the reviewers, that is being mitigated with this solution. So what does it mean? It means that as an editor, you are now free from thinking or being worrying about this peer review process, because you have access to this wonderful tool which gives you a lot of suggestions, and you are able to reach out to those reviewers to help you review your papers. Now, when we talk about services, it's very important that the service is not just provided to you in terms of the software solution, but also there is a human element which is involved. Now, the best part about Digital Commons Premier Service is that you have access to two kinds of consulting services. One is a strategic advisor. The strategic advisor helps you to advise on your journal, helps you to, and we will go into the details about what all concepts of strategic advising is covered by these experts. Now, this team is an expert. They have had a lot of successes in getting their journals prepared and get indexed in Scopus, Web of Science, or PubMed, or DOAJ. They work with you, they look at your journal, they deep dive into the issues of the journal and help you prepare your journals. They will identify what is right, what is wrong, what needs to be improved upon. Now, along with that strategic advisor, you also have another consultant who works with you. This dedicated consultant is more like a technical expert who trains you on Digital Commons platform, brings you on board, helps you understand that how can you use the Digital Commons or the Editorial Manager backend. In terms of using that backend, they also do help you with the designing and the branding and metadata customization. So that part is done by our dedicated consultant, which is on the right side. Along with all of that, one of the most pertinent question that every editors ask us is that our journals are already hosted in XYZ platform. Now, when we talk about moving to a new platform, there's a huge amount of work involved in migrating the journals. Now, when we refer to migration of journals, I understand that a lot of editors actually feel the inertia, like, oh, I'm so used to using so and so platform that the thought of migrating to a new platform is kind of, although I love your platform, it's great, but the migration is a big pain. Now, during such, we understand that, and that's why at the premier level, our consultants provide you with 10 hours of migration services, which means that they are going to migrate content of your journal from your existing platform to Digital Commons platform, and they'll give 10 hours of their service to do that. Now, these consultants, they come with a lot of experience. They have worked with more than 2,500 journals. Most of these journals have been migrated from XYZ platform to Digital Commons, and they are well-versed, prepared, and they understand how to work. They work with you to do the project management as well, so that you can plan out how you want to move step by step in terms of improving your journals. So this is a quick look at the migration. So we provide 10 hours of migration. We migrate back issues to Digital Commons, pending submissions to editorial manager. You also require an export of your submission metadata. Okay, so we do all of that, although we do not log into external sites on your behalf. That is something that you will have to help us and then provide us with the metadata. So we gather your specifications, we migrate as many articles as possible within that 10 hours, and we also train you meanwhile, so that going forward, if there are any other work which is left beyond these 10 hours, that you will be capable of doing it. Now, when it comes to strategic advising, our key consultants who are experts, they provide you strategic consultants around pre-sales, around implementation and ongoing processes. So they do the introductory workshop, they help you do the individual meeting with journal teams, they carry out advanced workshops to help you understand, prepare you in terms of managing the platform well for you on your behalf. So what are the key topics that they do for strategic advising? They look into the goal setting, the launch process, journal policy pages, index transfers, journal impact reports, regular advising sessions, as well as for index applications. So all of them, each of them individually forms different parts of the strategic advising that our consultants, strategic consultants, provide the journals when they are using our premier services. So when we provide you with the journal impact report, it covers, editorial manager reports. We cover reports around the manuscript flow, editorial reports, social media marketing. What are the downloads? What are the reach of the articles? What in terms of how many countries, what types of organizations who are reading your content, how has been the traffic which is entering into your website? All of that in details are covered within the journal impact report. So just to give you with some numbers, in 2020-22, these are some of the, how until from 2018 to 2022, what are the different journals which has been hosted on Digital Commons platform using the Premier service, and how these journals over a period of time has been accepted and indexed in different platforms. So our journals come from all the different parts of the world. So not just in Southeast Asia, South Asia, but globally, there are a lot of journals, 650 different institutions who are using Digital Commons platform to manage, maintain, and host and publish their journals. And when it comes to migrating, our journals, which has migrated to Digital Commons platform, have previously been either with, all these different publishers. And due to one reason or the other, they decided to migrate from their existing publishers to Digital Commons platform. When it comes to indexation, we work with the journals, depending on how your journal is, at what stage your journal is, what kind of improvement it requires, as well as depending on the indexation database that you are aiming to get your journal indexed. Our team work with you so that they can prepare your journal in the best way possible to meet those criteria. However, let me please share with you that coming on Digital Commons platform or using Digital Commons Premier service is not a guarantee for any indexation. All we do is that we provide you with the support, we provide you with all the inputs and the advices prepare your journal in the best way, but we will never be able to give you a confirmation or a commitment that yes, if you use our platform, you're going to get indexed. So that is not how it works. But what we do generally is that we prepare your journal, we look into your journal, we make sure your journal is improved, and so that your journal is best way possibly prepared, so that it has increased its possibility in terms of getting indexation in Scopus, Web of Science, DOAJ, or any other ANI databases. Some of quick examples. So we have Journal of Food and Drug Analysis. From the time that it has come on board, there's been a huge increase in terms of their citation. We have also the journal. We have also the journal here of sustainable mining, which has been Journal of Sustainable Mining, which has come on board in 2018. And then since then, the journal has really improved in its site score. We have Karbala International Journal of Modern Science. It came on board as well in 2018. It started at very low, but once it was on Digital Commons platform, over the period of time, it has had huge improvement in terms of its site score. And all of this is related to the fact that how our platform works, how our strategic team works, and what kind of support we provide to those journals. This is another example. Journal of Food and Drug Analysis is also indexed in Web of Science, and the success story of Web of Science, in terms of how, from the time that it started, how did the journal's impact factor improved from where it started to where it has reached after it has moved from its previous platform to Digital Commons platform. This is also about the same journal and their success story in PubMed in terms of from the time it started to now, how the journal has improved in terms of its indexation, its performance, and citation. I know that in Southeast Asia, a lot of the universities are using OJS platform to manage their journal, which is an open access platform for managing journals. Whenever we talk about it, I think it's very important to understand that what are the benefits you get when you migrate from your existing platform to Digital Commons platform, and specifically when you focus on the strategic advising aspect, which comes with the Premier Publishing Service. So very quickly, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these points, but Digital Commons are, it provides an advantage over OJS in terms of its flexible workflows, search engine optimization, professionalism. It is a cloud hosted, so there are no limitations in terms of the number of issues and volumes. We have a stronger security and infrastructure. We provide you with a dashboard that helps you understand metrics in terms of the performance of your articles. We also provide you with strategic advising. We also provide, it's scalable. You can start with one journal today and you can move up to many, many journals. And depending on what kind of package you take, sometimes there could be, there is no limitation to, you can have unlimited publications on Digital Commons platform. And the interface is very easy, user-friendly, and designing and branding is also part of the package, which is not there with the OJS platform. With this, I think I will come to the end, and I think I have kept the time. It's 3:21 now, so we still have some time for a couple of questions and answers. And I'm leaving you with my email address so that if you feel that you want to have a more deep dive session and want to discuss more around this platform and the services, please connect with me, and I'll be more than happy to help you and support you on that. So thank you so much, Clarice. It's for you now to take the session forward.
Yes, so the floor is open for any questions for both Priyanka and Tracy. Any questions from the audience? If there are no more questions, of course, feel free to email us if you have any other questions that you may have. We will be sending over a recording of this webinar and also the presentations that Tracy and Priyanka showed today. But of course, thank you everyone for your time today. Thank you, Tracy and Priyanka, for all the insights you've shared, and thank you for our attendees from across the region for your time and for your valuable contributions. Thank you. Thank you so much.